Famines and hunger, which were regular features in India, are now more the exception than the rule. And even when they do take place, they are contained. And a country which once had to rely on the shiploads of PL480 food grains, which arrived from the USA to feed its people, thanks to the Green Revolution, can now boast of surplus food grains. The Indian economic model, as envisaged by Nehru, was a mixed one, where private capital existed side by side the state industries. And in any case, India never had any dearth of private entrepreneurship. Even in the early years of the 20th century, India were stories of individual visionaries. One such was a Parsi man whose forefathers had landed in the coast of Gujarat, escaping religious persecution. The genius of Jamshedji is that he alone in his time understood the full significance of the Industrial Revolution in the West and of its potential for his own country. Where others saw India's freedom primarily or exclusively in terms of political action, he saw clearly that India's freedom could not be achieved or sustained by political means alone. The township in Bihar, which bears his name, is testament to the foresight of this entrepreneur. Successive generations of this family bearing the name of Tata have become synonymous with industrial progress in the country. After independence, a handful of industrial dynasties controlled major shares of the private wealth. But private wealth was viewed with a degree of suspicion. Industrial laws during these days were essentially devised to regulate and control private industries. The acts were designed so that economic power was not concentrated in the hands of big business alone, but an array of controls, permits and licenses only helped generate an unhealthy nexus between the politician, the bureaucrat and the industrialist. By 1961, an official study showed that less than 2% of the country's companies owned 53% of the total private capital, whereas 86% of the others owned 15% of the capital. For most observers, it was evident that by the mid-70s and late 80s, the license quota Raj, as this era was dubbed, had contributed to distortions in the system.
Indian trade and business is like water. Water always finds its way around barriers. And if it cannot find its way around a barrier, it goes underground. So that's what happened in India. When we found controls to be terribly excessive, Indian industry and trade began to go underground. We developed a large black economy. We began to develop a huge overseas economy, which nobody knows about. The IMF has estimated that over $100 billion of Indian money is lying outside.
The country's economy had become stagnant and fiscal crisis was reaching alarming proportions. Experts argued that the economy needed to be given a shock therapy if it was to respond to the challenges. There was already a contention that Indian economy must shed its shackles, that it was time it should dovetail itself to the global system.